Hello all and welcome back to FRS Season 5. We're back after a couple of weeks break for me because of a dismal showing in Baku that wasn't even worth showing, and then an absence in Spa, then our break week. But we are here now, round 5, hitting the halfway point of this 10-race season at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, the third and final street circuit that we have on this FRS calendar. Now let's take a look at the track. 4.3 kilometers, 14 corners, 3 DRS zones, but only 2 detection points, so that long straight, the back/front straight split by the chicane at the end of the lap is held by 1 detection point. It's returning to the calendar after its only absence last season, so it's good to have it back once again, as it is a fantastic track to race around in the dry. It's got the smallest pit lane loss of the season though, just 17 seconds of time lost under green flag conditions, so it should be able to open up some different strategy opportunities. Let's take a look at some of the overtaking zones. Of course, turns 1 and 2, with the way it switches back left to right, allows for some long battling. Then at the end of the first DRS straight, you have turns 8 and 9, which isn't a great overtaking opportunity on its own, but it sets you up for the run down into turn 10, where you can overtake into the corner, and it's also important to get good traction out of that corner to send it down the long back straight, the final DRS zone, and into the last chicane, where you end up here, turns 13 and 14 at the Wall of Champions. Now let's take a look at the tires here. The soft, medium, and hard compounds available. The medium only a half second slower than the softs, although the hards are 1.4 seconds off the pace, so don't expect to see too many hards in the running. The medium's definitely quick enough to be involved in a 2-stop strategy. Now let's get ready to head into qualifying for the first flying lap as we pitch it into the final chicane for the first time. Carry as much speed as we can to start our flying lap, and then head down into turn 1. Hug the right hand side, find the brake point about 75 meters. Take what curb you can there for turn 1, and then get the car really slowed down into turn 2. Loves to understeer, and then easy on the power. So easy to lose the back end of the car through turn 3. Now down the hill into turn 4 and 5. Just kind of clipping the apexes side by side now into as we get ready for the next DRS zone. So another tricky part of so many chicanes are here around Canada. It's very difficult to make sure you get the power down. The car is very unbalanced. It tends to understeer on corner entry and then oversteer on exit. So it's all about modulating your throttle and getting the front end of the car in, because you need that pointy nose. Now here we are headed to the braking point just ahead of the 100-meter board into turn 10, the slowest corner on the track, just about 45 miles an hour through the apex there. Now hard on the throttle and open up the DRS for one of 2 little blasts before the final chicane here. So just past the 100-meter board, about 75 meters, almost approaching 50. Throw it in the chicane, but we ran just a little bit too much over that inside curve on the left-hander and invalidated our first flying attempt. Would have been about a 1:10.3. So here we are back out on the track. 10 minutes left to go now in this qualifying session. We are out once again to start a flying lap. See if we can get one valid through this one. So here we are through turns 1 and 2. Try and get the nose rotated, get the power down, ease into the throttle. Not quite as quick as our first run, where we are down about 2/10 or so. So we've lost some time. A big snap of oversteer that we had to make a little bit of a correction to. 3/10 down on our previous best lap time, but we do have an opportunity to pick up quite a bit of time through this sequence of corners, getting the throttle down much better that time. You can see that delta fall down to about 2/10. Heading into the chicane, we've run completely over the curbing there. Somehow the game does not invalidate us through there, but we decide to back out of the lap to not set an invalid lap time. So we still have yet to set a valid lap time, with only 6.5 minutes left to go in the session. Now, Canada is a little bit of a shorter track around the way, so you do have enough time if you hustle to get 4 flying runs in. You can get in, out, in, out, in, out again. So we are back on the same tires we went on our last lap on. Since they only had the out lap and most of a flying lap, they didn't have to do the extra in lap. Since we only have 3 sets of soft tires for the qualifying session, we'll use that last set for our final run of the session. But now we're about 1/10.5 down off of our previous best. This time, much better through that set of corners. And you can see picking up a lot of time off of our previous invalid time. That was at 1:10.3 as Nemesis goes provisionally fastest overall on a 1:08.5. So a very quick lap from them. Our qualifying times in time trial we got down to an 8.8. The best I did in a GP mode practice was a 9.3. So looking to hopefully try and get down into the mid 109s. But here we are through the final chicane. Valid this time, picking up quite a bit of time, about 0.3. And that is going to put us at a 110.0. So still plenty of time to find. Got to find about a half second to get into those mid 109s. But here we are on the fresh tires as Povey goes provisionally fastest 108.560. And we have about 1.5 minutes left to start. We would have enough time to do one more flying lap after this, but you don't typically have enough ERS left in the battery to go for one more lap. You will run out down that back straight. But here we are, better through the first couple of quarters, only up about 0.2 now through. So we're about similar to what we did on that original invalid lap through there. And now a little later on the brakes, the track has gripped up a little bit, but we're not quite as quick through turns 5 and 6 there. And we have lost a bit of time, only about 0.2 up, but we do have still plenty of time to gain as now we take all the curbing that we can there. And we are up 0.4, creeping up towards a half second. So big opportunity to move forward in the times. Tuck it in to the right there. Get the power down. A much better acceleration than we had on the last run through there. As you can see, we've got about a half a second now nearly up on our delta. It's just all about going to be the last chicane and trying to get through there. So here we are. Spot our braking point. And car understeers. We just don't get the nose into the start of the chicane. We lose all of that time.
Lost it all.
You see it's just gone completely away. We lost an entire half a second there. We improve only by a couple hundredths to get into the 109s, and that's going to put us sitting 11th place on the grid.
I would have been P8.
But MJ Povey picks up pole position by just 35 thousandths over Nemesis. Issei is in P3, Stanier P4, Queasy, a new driver, in 5, Sam as well, a new driver. LC Fighter, who had picked up 3 pole positions already in this season, now down in 7th, 0.8 off the pace there. So an unexpected qualifying from him. So here we are on the grid. We do have rain forecast towards the end of the race in the last 10 to 5 laps of this one. So we have opted to start on the soft tires. We're going to try and pit in early so we get a ready for the start as we're almost 4 wide, just barged into on the outside. Not really much we can do, and that's going to cost us a couple of positions. We were trying to be safe through there. We've dropped from 11th to 13th and now behind Queasy, Death Star, and Racer 04 in the Ferrari. We are on the quicker tires, so we need to try and find a way past. Canada isn't an easy track to overtake as Gali's going to go try and down the inside into that corner as we were having to back up from the train, but he is unable to get his nose anywhere alongside enough.
I'm fine with moving
and get a good move there, but now we need to try and set our sights forward as Queasy and Racer are a little slow through the chicane as we're trying to find a way past. We are on the quicker tires. Queasy is on similar tires, but Racer has the opportunity to hold us up. Queasy looking to the inside, moving under the braking there, kind of taking away our position, but we weren't in any real position to attack under the brakes there as well. And here we are now in the train, and we actually seem to have a little bit less straight line speed than some of the other cars. I think setup-wise, I carried too much wing in this one, as we tend to gain a fair bit through into the corners, but we're losing out on the straights. Now, Canada is also very difficult on overtake deployment. You see, we're already down to 74% battery. You can only regen like around 5% or less per lap in dry conditions. So it's very tough to get that battery charged back up once you use it. So you need to deploy it and utilize it in the correct spaces where you can. But we're going to jump ahead now, lap 3 of 35 as Queasy and Racer are headed down. We're going to have a little look to the inside of Queasy. He's gone a bit wide. There's a tiny bit of a touch as we're going to the inside, but we get a big snap of oversteer and wheel spin getting on the power, and that's going to cost us the chance to try and make that overtake stick. We both have the DRS on Racer, closing up on him. Queasy's got a very good run. We're just going to take the clean air on the nose for the moment, as Queasy is going to go up the inside of Racer. Side by side they go. We have a little bit of space on the inside, but he moves right into us. Luckily, with the contact with the wall, we are not taking any damage, but Gali goes to the inside and manages to sneak his way through. That was one I probably could have referred over to the stewards, but in retrospect, I did not. There's only one incident that I did take over to the stewards as we pick up our first track limits warning penalty, but Once again, Racer is just struggling. He's all over the track, but managing to just hold positions where we can't get by him. It's a tough track to overtake as he checks up in the middle of the corner there, backs into us, and since he was in the DRS range of the other car, he was able to hold off. So we're going to have to go to the inside. He's going to try and cut back on us, but we finally get the position from him at the moment. And with all the time that we've lost behind the cars, we've actually burned up our soft tires. We aren't really in a good spot. So at this stage, I decided I was going to have to make the other pit stop onto the mediums to get me to when the rain is supposed to come anyway. So I'm burning all of this deployment, and I'm going to opt to pit now, try and get some clean air, and just race on my own terms away from everybody else. So here we are, hard on the brakes. Pit limiter active into this pit lane. It's only about a 16-second time loss, so we can hope to try and undercut. But we're going to go onto the medium tires, which we can take a good 22 to 24 laps if we're treating them quite nicely. So should be plenty of opportunity. But after we come out of the pits, we're going to jump way ahead, lap 14 of 35. As a couple of cars had come into the pits and come out behind us, El Gloverino and Queasy. Death Star is into the pits as well, and we've actually caught up with Racer, who made a mistake and lost about 10 seconds worth of time. So he is on still his starting set of medium tires as we come out just ahead of Death Star. He's on those fresh, soft compounds, so he's going to try and hopefully make a move past us and get that done without losing either of us too much time. I'm just going to stay on the racing lines, not defend too hard, leave the door open where it's necessary, because I am closing up on Racer and should be in DRS fairly soon of him, as Death Star's got DRS right here, right now, and I leave the door wide open for him to go out, but he's just completely backed out of it into that corner. I was hoping he would just overtake me there, could slot in, but now he's going to get a run down into turn 10. You can see with Queasy almost a full second behind, but now I've got to defend the inside. I've got to go slower into the corner, and that's cost us both huge amounts of time. Now Queasy is just right on my gearbox, and since Death Star was just behind me at the detection point, I have no DRS help, and Queasy is going to have the DRS from being within that 1 second. He's just going to sail right past, and so I just lift off and let him through. I'm not going to fight and cost myself even more time, but that having the Red Bull not take the position down the DRS straight where I needed him to cost me a huge amount of time to the cars ahead and behind, because then he fought through the slowest corner where then we had to leave tons of space for both, and that really compromised the running, as now we've got Gloverino on the back of us with fresher medium tires than us, because he stayed out till about lap 10, and essentially all of the time that we gained from the undercut of a few laps was completely wiped by the Red Bull. And Queasy there is now Racer really fighting hard with Queasy to defend that position in front of us, as we've still got El Gloverino in our rearview mirrors that we have to worry about. But they are fighting side by side. Really aggressive defending from Racer pushes Queasy actually off the track. And so that was making me a little concerned on trying to make the overtake on Racer, was just how much movement he was doing in the braking zones and how much pushing around he was doing. But here they are defending. Queasy moving to the inside. Racer now to the inside on the brakes side by side. And we're going to go, and now we have to dodge Queasy as he's forced off track by Racer, but makes a very poor rejoining. A huge amount more time cost to us as he's going to fight us down into the corner. He really probably should have handed us that position. He was on the fresher tires and would have had the opportunity to try and re-overtake. We come out just ahead of Gali, at least, who has gone medium to medium, so he needs the rain to happen. But we went from being just about to close into Racer's DRS range to over 2 seconds back of him in the space of about 4 laps because of all the fighting that we're having to do and the poor driving in front of me, and really just having to play dodgems at this point. It was not a great move from them, I would say. But here goes Queasy. Mistake is made by Queasy. He's into the wall on lap 17. He gets his rear tires onto the grass on the exit there, and a safety car is out. The safety car has been called, so now we have the opportunity to get some fresher tires on. The cars around us are on fresher tires, so we are going to take this opportunity to get some new tires on. Setting a change at the moment to the medium tires, but checking with some advice there coming in, we actually have fresh medium or soft tires to go on to So we are going to go ahead and take the soft tires instead of the mediums. Hopefully utilize those with a little bit better pace, because there's really nobody behind us to fall behind anymore. So it's a pit stop that we definitely need to take at this stage of the race.
Saw it just in time.
As we come back out, we will see where we filter in, but we are still running right at the back, just ahead of El Gloverino in a Ferrari sandwich between Racer and Gloverino. No Habs fan Nick this week, unfortunately. Racer is reserving in that seat for him. But here we are jumping ahead now. Lap 20 is when the safety car is coming in, as the leader really backing up the field, slowing up a lot. Went from about 90 miles an hour down to about 30. And then they bolted, so I don't know who led that restart, but it was not a very good restart that was led. It looks like it might be Povey out front based on the blue dot on the mini map, but we have a pretty poor restart through there, just taking it easy, as we know we're going to close right back up to this group, as Stanier is fighting with El Gloverino now. Stanier taking an extra pit stop, dropping onto the medium tires now behind us. So we should have an opportunity to run these softs fairly deep to the rain. We're expecting only to take another 10 laps or so, hopefully until at the latest arrivals of the rain. But Racer, big mistake out of the traction zones there, and after he had looked to be a very difficult car to overtake and was fighting very hard for positions, luckily we didn't have to do too much fighting with him. We were able to just move right past after his mistake. So there's a bit of stress off the plate there, because I was concerned with how much risk it would take just to try and overtake, even when he was much slower than the cars around. But we are now on the back of the Red Bull of Death Star. We've got Brenschel just ahead, all of us carrying 3 seconds worth of time penalties at this stage of the race. As Nemesis sets the new fastest lap of the race, going into the 110s is a pretty quick lap from him, as we've only done a 112.1. Jeff is going to bother me for new strategy options, as we're trying to see if we can't make our way through this group of medium tire runners, but with no DRS and the straight line disadvantage that we have because of the higher winged setup, which was definitely a mistake in the weekend. The setup I built, started building around, had a little bit higher wings. I wasn't too concerned about it until I got into the race, so it definitely was not as helpful as it could have been. But now Stanier in the McLaren is starting to close up to the back of us. We're having a little look to the inside of Death Star, maybe see if we can make him move around a little bit, but he is just going to stick right on the racing line. And unfortunately, with this train that is starting to lose track to the cars ahead, really up there in P6, I would believe. But you can see we're on overtake, we're in the slipstream, and we're still losing time to Stanier behind us. So having to be very careful with that. He just gets such a good run out of that last corner. He's right on the back of us. Now we're going to not go defensive. We're going to make sure we have the second part of the apex, because he's going to have the inside of turn 1. We're going to have the inside for turn 2. Side by side, we just need to make sure we leave the space. Getting on the throttle should be just about enough space, and checking our rear views to see if we can get ahead, and we just about get there, and a little bit deep though into the braking zone, and that little bit of little mistake cost me a couple of tenths to Death Star ahead, which might put us just outside of the newly acquired DRS. Yeah, we were outside 1 second at the detection point, but we're going to jump ahead now, lap 25 of 35, as we've closed back up to within 4 tenths of Death Star. Stanier still hounding us. Our soft tires starting to drop off a little bit, as Stanier now has the inside line for the hairpin. We're going to try and sweep around the outside and get the better drive out of the corner, but we are both going to have DRS down into the straight, although he has that extra straight line speed. We've just about used as much overtake as I dare, as now Stanier into the inside, pulling alongside into the chicane. We're going to try and leave some space, but he leaves no space on the apex there and squeezes us right off. So
you pushed me entirely off the track.
That is the incident that I did choose to submit to the stewards. We will see. I gave him about as much space. I gave him enough space on the inside, I think, of the first apex, as we try and fight back, but a big snap of oversteer, and now we are at the whims of El Gloverino. But Stanier and Death Star both carrying extra time penalties compared to us. They have gone up to 6 seconds while we are still on 3 seconds. So at the moment, if we can just stay within the 3-second margin to them, we will jump past them on the timing towers at the end. But the sun is still out, only 10 laps left to go in this race. And we are sitting right on the cusp of points, P10 at the moment, with El Gloverino quite close behind, although he is also on the soft tires, so should be experiencing similar degradation to what we are at this stage of the race. We are still within the DRS zone of Stanier, so getting pulled along a little bit to help out with our lack of straight line speed, but nowhere near close enough to actually mount any kind of attack on him. If we can just get a couple, if he makes a mistake, we should be able to move up there, but really it's all about staying within that penalty window at this stage. There's a few cars up ahead that I don't know their penalty status. Racer 04, you can see on the timing tower, P12, has 11 seconds worth of time penalty, so he's picked up a little extra something. But here we are now on lap 32 of 35, and the rain has arrived, and Death Star has gone around. He's spun. He is up to Brenschel now up to 9 seconds of penalties ahead of us, so we are at the moment in that 6-second gap window, but on the dries, in the wet, trying to keep the car handled, and El Gloverino doing quite a good job staying with us, but we're starting to feel the effects of the rain. It started coming at the beginning of this lap, and now we've done about a full lap in these wet conditions, but just easing onto the throttle and trying to make as good of an attack as we can. So we are going to set the intermediates. We are going to come in this lap. It feels like the track is getting wet quick enough that we're going to go early. We're going to go one lap earlier than everybody else and hope that we timed it right and make up a little bit of time on them. We'll have to make sure to not overheat these intermediate tires, but with only 3 laps left to go in this race, we are going to be the first to take on those tires as El Gloverino and Death Star go through. Racer 04, about 26 seconds back of us, isn't likely to overtake us on track. So here we are, unlocking that pit limiter, and away we go. So now trying to get a feel for the track. Pretty big understeer on the fresh intermediate tires. That first corner. The track, I would say, is not quite wet enough for the intermediates. You can see the temperature screen that we have up is actually heating up pretty rapidly. So we're being very careful with how we utilize these tires. There's a bit of a lockup down into turn 1. You see those surface temperatures spiking, but as long as we can keep them below 85°C or so, they shouldn't get to an overheat stage. And there is the usual switchover indicator, DRS disabled. So about halfway around the lap, probably it could have gone either way with the strategy. Although if you put me 16 seconds further up the road, I would probably be much closer to the end of the lap, and it would probably have been better to stay out the 1 extra lap. But we are only 9 seconds behind Death Star, 10 seconds back of El Gloverino, who should be coming into the pits right about now. We should be able to overtake them back quite easily, as there they are, both in the pit lane now, and we have to, coming through the chicane the first time on, this big lockup as we bounce over the curbs as Death Star retires, but we do pick up an extra 3 seconds of time penalty, so that mistake has cost us now that extra bit of cushion to the cars ahead, because there's a few just out in front. Obviously, Brenschel has that 9 seconds penalties, and Stanier now, we have the same amount of time penalties, so instead of having to be 3 seconds to Stanier and only 6 seconds to Brenschel, we will now no longer overtake Stanier on penalties unless we can get him on track, close up 3.5 seconds in 2 laps, and we have to stay within that 3-second gap to Brenschel, which we are just about on. So it's all going to be about how we can drive these last 2 laps to hopefully gain some positions. We're still really trying to get a feel for and not pick up any more track limits penalties. Big slide coming out of the chicane that time. Luckily, we were able to save it. Now, luckily, with the extra rain, we do regenerate the or the slower pace you drive. We regenerate the ERS much better. So we are able to really send it and utilize it once the traction is down. So you see the overtake button on the bottom left there on quite a bit more, burning that battery down. 3.1 seconds to Brenschel out ahead, and now we made the mistake last time, and now we're going to be extra careful into the chicane to not pick up any extra track limits warnings. But 3.2 is the gap. Only 2/10 to make up to Brenschel to try and close and take that extra position away from him. Really fighting the understeer through turn 2, trying to get the car rotated. And that's cost us quite a bit of time to Brenschel. So that's really going to hurt the quest to close up to him, as we had gotten down to about 3.7 seconds, but really lost, I would say, probably 3 or 4 tenths in that one corner alone on the mistake. And another big understeery moment. I think about probably the mistake I made. I did not bolt on any extra front wing in the rainy conditions. I felt since I was already carrying a lot of downforce, it would have been just overkill to put on more and to hurt my straight line speed. But you can see now still 3.1, 3.2 seconds to Brenschel up ahead. It's all about how we can do in the braking zone and on traction in this final corner, as Stanier and Gali are fighting side by side, getting on the power. Another big snap as we have to lift out of the throttle, getting on power. And you can see we went from 3.2 down to nearly 4 seconds, because not only have we lost the time on throttle, we lose the time all the way down the straight. But it looks like LC Fighter has taken the race win, as we get a fairly quick run, a little bit of a cut on the final chicane, but 3.3.
It's some points.
Only 3/10 off of taking that position off of Brenschel, but we are P9 at the moment, and we will see the steward's decision on the incident with Stanier forcing us off the track in the chicane. So 2 points, not a great day overall. Not the best result that we've had, but I definitely made some strategic mistakes. I should have stayed out on those softs much longer at the start.
I'll take a top 10.
And I should have been a little bit more aggressive at the start of the race. I let myself fall behind a car that was going to be much slower, and that definitely bottlenecked me for a huge portion of the race, falling behind Racer 04 early on, who has typically been fairly quick, but has not had the practice time. He's been driving as a reserve, so understandable why he's not quite on the pace. But with the amount of defense that he was doing, it definitely kept me from being able to make some good headway, because we definitely lost probably 5 or 7 seconds just following in that train. There was definitely a pace to be had. On the starting softs, was usually doing mid 112s in practice, and I barely got into the 112s once I got the mediums on. So it wasn't my quickest pace overall, but I was also trying to be a little bit more careful. But we head to Japan for the next race, round 6 of the FRS season, and it's another track that's very difficult to overtake on. So I'm going to have to get onto the practice pads and get on the wheel much sooner and try and build some quali pace. It's definitely my weakest point. But LC Fighter gets his first race win of the season. MJ Povey comes P2. Nemesis in third, though, picking up that fastest lap point. Sam on his debut comes fourth. But thank you guys for joining me on this one. I will catch you guys a little later.
But Stan here just straight up ran me off the track.